It's the third round show, Roland Garros 2025 notebook dump style. Not the most scintillating third round of a slam you'll ever see. Hopefully the show you'll find is, regardless. We've got a lot of matches to go through, although not quite as many as I did in the first round and the second round, because again, I thought there were less great matches. We'll hit on Popyrin Borges, Rune Halys, Khachanov Paul, Tiafoe Korda, a little bit on Alcaraz, Dzumhur, Sinner, Lehecka, but I don't have much on either of those. I do want to discuss Arthur Fils pulling out briefly. But I want to start the show with another match that wasn't all that competitive, wasn't super compelling in terms of what the final result was going to be. It's a straightforward win by Jack Draper over Joao Fonseca, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. As always, with a Fonseca match, with a Fonseca result, the internet is blowing up. There's a lot of explosive discourse. I will talk about, okay, what should our takeaways be after this result? I'll get there. But let's do the match first. Let's just talk about the match first, and then we'll get to that stuff. So why was this a blowout? This was a blowout because what Draper was able to do from a consistency, movement, and defense standpoint was far beyond what Fonseca is capable of right now. You could see Jack in rally, comfortable playing high percentage into big targets, focused on mostly depth, in my opinion. And on the forehand, it's net clearance. On the backhand, it's just precise enough to keep the ball in the court keep the ball deep over and over again. And he's got that easy weight of shot, that repeatable rally ball that's difficult to attack. And he never feels like he needs to press. Why? Because he trusts his legs and he trusts his defense. His defense, which in essence is, I think, what makes this such a difficult matchup for Fonseca, because Jack Draper has no problem soaking up Fonseca's pace. He's not going to be bothered by pace when there's no width there. If you can hit pace into open court, if you can hit pace into a corner, it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. That's effective. But I think when it comes to just, okay, I'm hitting the ball hard, but I haven't opened up any space on the court, or I'm not playing close to the lines and there's no precision there, that's when it becomes pretty matchup dependent. And there are going to be some top players who Fonseca goes up against, and they're going to be like, cool, you hit the ball hard. It's not affecting me. And I think Draper is one of those guys. And why? So what does that actually mean? Well, why is pace effective? Because time is an extremely valuable commodity on the tennis court. It's massive. Most players produce something really good when they have a lot of time, and really not as good when they don't have a lot of time. And that's why pace is important, period. It's really important, and Fonseca does it really well. But Draper has that quality about him where he's very difficult to rush. The backhand is really compact. The forehand, I think, stays pretty tight as well. And he doesn't get rushed. Not easily at all, at least. Draper's forehand defense in particular was a total buzzsaw for Fonseca. He was using the pace coming in and redirecting balls down the line and turning defense to offense just with the timing of his forehand down the line. There were so many times where Fonseca cranked a backhand cross or cranked a forehand inside out, and Draper was still able to change directions off of it. And the timing is the aspect that's so difficult there, and it was so money. Fonseca was getting put on the run a lot more often because of that. Because if Draper was staying in the cross courts, he was not going to be putting Fonseca on the move as often. And I think that's what you want to avoid with Joao, is just we're going to kind of stand in one spot and trade ground strokes. As soon as you kind of get him moving, you have a much better chance at drawing errors and taking away some of the venom that Fonseca brings to the table. So unforced errors in this match were 38-20. And I don't think I have to tell you who had 38 and who had 20. And again, it came down to Jack feeling comfortable playing high percentage, and Fonseca, the discipline was a sore spot again, just like it was at Indian Wells. And I don't know if that's because he feels pressed by Draper's defense, like he has to do a little bit more in order to actually make progress against Jack because he's such a good pace absorber, and therefore he's biting off a little bit more than he can chew when he's attacking. Or perhaps it's not that, and it's actually Draper's offense that makes Fonseca uneasy and causes him to press because he doesn't feel comfortable absorbing what Jack can bring to the table off the ground. Both of those things could come into play because at the end of the day, this is why Draper's an elite player. He's better defensively than most of the guys Fonseca comes up against, and he's far better offensively than most of the guys Fonseca will come up against day to day on the tour. That's just the reality of it. But I think this is the main reason this is a matchup issue for Fonseca so far is because of the pace absorption and the consistency from Draper. But it got me thinking about development because everybody has a developmental path. What was it for Draper? Well, Draper was a grinder, an ultra consistent baseline player who needed to develop his weapons. I guess based on the response from Twitter after I tweeted that, that's not common knowledge. But let me explain where I'm getting this from. I'm getting this from Jack himself. I'm getting this from Mark Petchey, who was in those circles, and I'm getting it from James Trotman. James Trotman has talked about this in interviews as well. Jack, as a child, formative years, teenage years, he was undersized. He was like 5'7". And then 17 years old, 18 years old, he shot up. He became 6'4". He was still really skinny for a while, but he started to get big muscles pretty later on. And his DNA as a player, Draper, was always making balls. So even if you watched him on the tour in 2023, 2022, a little bit 2024, you could see Jack was never a high error guy, never a guy who was going to miss a lot. However, he did play pretty passive from the back of the court. Serve was always big. But from the back, the forehand, he was a little bit reluctant to attack with it. He struggled to create penetration with it. It was very spinny, had a lot of spin on it always. Was not nearly the weapon that it is today. And even though the serve was always good, it's gone up tenfold. Everybody talks about with Draper, and yes, his durability was bad and he constantly got injured. And I know it might be hard for people to be like, wait, Draper was a grinder, but I thought he got hurt all the time. Yes, that's why it took him forever to have success. Not forever. That's an exaggeration. That's why he didn't have success at 18, 19, 20, or even, I guess at 21. It started to happen for him, although he didn't break into the top 30 until he was 22 years old, which was last year. It took Jack that long because his body couldn't support his play style. And two things changed. He beefed up the body enough where it could support the more grinding style. He also developed his weapons so that he wasn't as reliant on his consistency and his physicality to get him through. And now he's at a place where he can be, now he's best of both worlds. In basketball, like anyone who's very familiar with basketball will be very familiar with this reference. When a little guy who learns how to shoot and dribble suddenly becomes 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", but they've already developed those skills, that is ideal. And that's what we've gotten with Draper here. He already got that, he has that grinder mentality and that baseline consistency, and then he got really big and strong and can hit the fuzz off the ball at this point. That was Draper's path. Well, Fonseca's developmental path is the reverse. Joao is already a powerhouse. His DNA is damage, attack. Everything is lethal. At any time I have a chance to finish points, that is my mentality. That is his mindset. He needs to develop the side that Jack had when he was 15. Grinding, defense, consistency. That does not need to be his style. That does not need to be his default. And it may never be what makes him great, but he needs to have it in the bag in order to be a well-rounded player, because sometimes you just don't have an option. I still think Fonseca's movement is going to be a problem against any elite player right now. Draper hit 8 drop shot winners, and I don't think he attempted all that many. The efficiency on Draper's dropper was insane. And it was just not hard for Jack to force errors in attack. This was what I was really expecting to see. The one thing that I thought Fonseca was not going to have much of a chance on is just being able to stay in points when he had to scramble. Because Joao, he's just not that quick to the corners right now when he comes up against this level. And he overplays from defensive positions at time as well, which makes him even easier to finish. And some of this is effort level and attitude, commitment to chasing down every ball possible. That didn't seem to be there at a certain point in this match for Fonseca, because it did seem like the intensity dropped. And that is a fair criticism coming out of this match that can be levied onto Joao. Now, I think I know the reason for it. I think it's because he just stopped believing. He became demoralized. He became dejected. These are human feelings. You want to fend them off on the court. I don't think the loss of belief is avoidable. So I would not in a million years say Fonseca should believe. It's like, no, these guys are human. When they're getting their ass kicked for a second straight match against the same opponent in the course of 3 months, players are not in their head thinking positive thoughts and that they're going to come back and win, generally. So the loss of belief, that's okay. It's how you react to it. Can you kind of flush those negative narratives in your head? Can you flush them to the side and maintain your intensity, maintain your effort level? It didn't seem like Fonseca did a good job of that in this match. And of all the things that we saw, that was the thing that was by far the most disappointing about the performance. But he's 18, and what's important is that an 18-year-old, when they make mistakes, they learn. And this is the first time watching Fonseca that I've ever seen him do this. All right? So what to make of all this? What should be the takeaway? Fonseca's Roland Garros 2025. Well, it was exactly what should have been expected. I'm not saying that in another world, maybe Fonseca plays a little bit better against Jack, makes it a better match, but heck, I don't think he's good enough to win it under any circumstances. And ultimately, what I want to do in this case, considering the discourse is just so divisive whenever Fonseca plays a tennis match, is provide some facts, some simple historical context. 18-year-olds do not make runs at Roland Garros in modern men's tennis. It doesn't happen. It's happened once. Rafael Nadal did it in 2005. And now his footprint is on the court. There have only been 7 18-year-olds since the turn of the century that have made the third round at Roland Garros. 4 of them ended up being major champions in their careers. But I'm going to give you the list. Nadal did it. Richard Gasquet did it. Federer did it. Roddick did it. Coric did it. And Alcaraz did it. But here's what really sticks out to me. It's not that Fonseca joined those 6. No. And to be honest with you, I don't think Hurkacz was in any shape to really compete well in the first round. And I don't think Pierre-Hugues Herbert is a terrific barometer or measuring stick in the second round. So I'm not saying that we should be ultra impressed with Fonseca's run in the third round. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying this. Look what happened to these guys, these 18-year-olds, after they made the third round. Well, Gasquet lost to Nadal. Okay, it's kind of a different thing. Federer made the fourth round and lost to Alex Corretja. Roddick made the third round, lost to Hewitt. Coric made the third round, lost to Sock. Alcaraz made the third round, lost to Struff. Remember that one? 5-setter. So it's too young to do anything. It just is. So why are we expecting him to do anything? It's especially surprising that the patience is so low and the expectations are so unreasonably high at times. But at the end of the day, it's not his fans. It's actually people just looking to dunk on him because they have a resentment towards his popularity. That's what I think it really is. Because I've had to think about it. I've had to think, why are we in a place where when Fonseca loses, there's this backlash? We've gotten to this place because his popularity has outpaced his level. And people resent that. Instead of being happy because it's great for tennis, it's just funny how narratives work and how impatient sometimes people are, because Draper loses first round at Roland Garros last year to Jesper de Jong. And there's this narrative that he's not really a legitimate future elite player. That narrative is there, and it was loud at that point in time. And Sinner 2 years ago loses to Altmaier first round at Roland Garros, and that narrative is there when Sinner loses that match. It wasn't just because of one match. Okay, he hadn't broken through yet, but because it was so obvious that he had promise and people touted him again, there was that noise that Jannik Sinner wasn't a real prospect to contend for the biggest titles in the future. And we're going to go through the same thing with Fonseca here. So if you say that Draper exposed Fonseca, you are correct as it pertains to his current flaws, Joao's current flaws. You are incorrect as it pertains to his talent level and his long-term prospects. Simple as that. All right, I want to talk about all the other matches, and after this break, we'll discuss Arthur Fils, who unfortunately pulled out. Roland Garros coverage on Monday Match Analysis is brought to you by Go Sport. It's a family-owned company that specializes in just tennis bags, so they do it better. It stands up all on its own, which is one of my favorite parts. It's got more pockets than you could possibly ever need, and a black design that's sleek and matches all tennis racket brands. This compartment up here is special. It's ventilated, designed specifically for shoes and clothes. Check out gosport.com. That's go, G-E-A-U, and use the code GIL10 for 10% off your order. It's my favorite bag that I've ever owned. Support them because they support us. All right, I want to address Arthur Fils withdrawing from the tournament, which moves Andrei Rublev ahead to the fourth round. He'll take on Jannik Sinner. But I just wanted to follow up. I did feel a little bit badly. So while Fils was playing his second round match against Munar, obviously his movement just went away completely for 2 sets. And he took a medical timeout lower back. And there was a period of time where there was, I think, a question mark for most people watching the match. Is he exhausted or is he injured? And it was just, you were trying to get a read on that. After the match, well, first of all, he has the second wind. Not to say that he was looking fresh in the fifth set. Believe me, he was not. But he has the second wind, ends up winning the match in the fifth set. And then post-match, he's saying, I was cramping, I was exhausted, blah, blah, blah. So then it quickly becomes, okay, well, then he's not injured. He was exhausted. It turns out in hindsight, well, he was both. Of course, the answer was both. He was injured and exhausted. Stress fracture in the back, which unfortunately is an injury that can require quite a bit of rest. The timeline that I was hearing, at least on the TNT broadcast, was 4 to 6 weeks. But I know Jiri Lehecka picked up a stress fracture in his back, and he missed about 3 months. So wishing Arthur Fils a speedy recovery, saddened for him, saddened for the tournament, but Artur will be back many times over, electrifying the crowds at Roland Garros. And unfortunately, this will set back his 2025, but he's making great progress. Another guy who is 20 years old and just doing everything right, seemingly, at the moment. There's only one other match that I want to talk about from Saturday, and I don't have much to say about it, but Sinner Lehecka was another beatdown. And Lehecka is a guy who you would kind of circle as an unseeded guy who could get uncomfortable just because, well, this sounds familiar. His pace is top of the line off of both wings, but mostly his forehand. And I started the match at 6-love, 5-love after waking up early in the morning. And Lehecka at this point was just serving volleying constantly, which is something that he will do from time to time. But the fact that he was like, oh, well, this isn't happening from the back, so I'm a serve and volleyer now, is pretty nuts. It's pretty incredible to see Sinner take away somebody's belief like that, suck somebody's belief like that. And he did it by winning 69 out of the first 100 points. Unreal. Ground stroke winners to unforced errors. And keep in mind here, I am taking away volleys, I'm taking away serves, no overheads, no drop shots. None of this stuff counts. I'm just looking at ground stroke winners to unforced errors. Do you know how hard it is to be positive in this? So often you're finishing points with overheads and volleys and so forth and hitting aces, and that is helping your winners count and certainly, making that number look better. And it's the ground strokes from the back of the court that actually mostly drive up your unforced error count and don't do much for your winners count. Sinner off the ground was 18 winners to 6 unforced errors. Folks, that is absurd. Lehecka was 4 winners to 25 unforced errors. Rallies 5+ shots, 35-9 for Jannik. So the one thing you got to give some credit to Jiri Lehecka for is diagnosing what was happening. And he's going to the serve and volley because that is about as lopsided as you will ever see the stat sheet when it comes to exchanging ground strokes from the back of the court, particularly in those extended rallies. Wow. Scoreline there was 6-love, 6-1, 6-2. So let's go on now to some Friday results. I want to start with a 5-setter. Rune over Halys in 5. Second time these two have gone the distance. Halys went up 2-0 against Rune at Wimbledon. Holger won that one 6-1 in the 5th. This time he went down 2-1 and ended up taking it 6-2 in the 5th. I said after the second round that Holger Rune impressed me more than any other player with his performance in that night session against Emilio Nava. I thought he was unbelievably buttoned up and disciplined and consistent, and the defense was phenomenal. The counterpunching was excellent. And I thought he looked like a different guy this time around. Completely different player. I was baffled. I was like, what happened to that? He didn't look nearly as disciplined or as focused. And he played with fire here. because there were some shaky moments, particularly end of the fourth, where he wasn't that far away from losing the match, but he would end up rallying and winning it. First of all, like, what's the explanation for all this? Why was Rune such a different guy? I mean, there are two possible explanations. One is the heat. It was not a cool... Against Nava, it was a very cool night. And here it was a very hot day, at least by Paris standards. So that's one massive difference. The other one is the crowd. You got a neutral crowd for that night session on, I think it was, Wednesday, I believe. And then you got a pro Halys crowd, of course, on that Friday. And I think maybe they got to Holger a little bit. I know there was that incident with the towel. I still can't really figure out what exactly went down there. I have to see it again. But, those are the two variables that I think may have played into Rune just looking a whole lot worse against Halys here. And there were a couple of things he was doing that just didn't make any sense to me. One, he was standing way up on the return. When the point gets started, Rune has twice the abilities from the back of the court as Halys, mostly because of an enormous movement gap. Holger moves so much better. So you want to try to start the point, get into the point, make returns. I understand if you're going to stand up and you're going to chip block returns. That's one thing. Because if you want to block, you can't really stand all that far back. It's just too easy on the +1 generally if you're going to do that. But either block the return or move back. Rune, he was assuming this aggressive return approach, standing close, taking big swings, not making returns. It's like, how do we think Halys wins matches? He wins matches with his first serve. So why are we making it easy on him? Why aren't we making as many returns as possible? That was one thing. Holger was forcing drop shots indiscriminately. I mean, it was just bad drop shot after bad drop shot after bad drop shot. Not in execution. The execution was fine. It was the fact that he hadn't put in the work to position himself to make the drop shot available. He was just bailing out into it. And I'll tell you, it was working way more often than it should have been because Halys was really bad at taking advantage of this. He's not fast moving up to the drop shot, and he was not particularly good in figuring out what to do once he got up there. So there were many occasions where Rune was just flat out getting away with it. In fact, there was a big love 15 down the stretch in the fourth set where he had a pretty bad drop shot at love 15. Halys missed somewhat of a sitter, and Holger would hold serve. If he got broken, it was massive trouble. Overzealous forehands, another thing I kept seeing from Rune. Speed and direction, just low percentage stuff. Ground stroke unforced errors in this match. Rune 18, Halys 17. That's brutal. I'm sorry, it's brutal. Halys statistically, based on last year, as far as forehand in percentage, backhand in percentage, he ranks on the bottom, dead last on the backhand. He's dead last in one of them. Now I'm fuzzy because I didn't check it. And then he's like bottom 5 or bottom 3 in the other. So Halys is statistically, at least last year, the most erratic ground stroker on the tour. And Rune is right there with him, making just as many errors. Third set, 5-6, 15-40. Just one example. It's double set point for Halys. Holger has his serve here. You think in this spot, you're really going to lock it in. And it was a second serve. Halys hit a forehand return cross-court deep onto the baseline. And Rune on his +1 forehand goes down the line wide for an unforced error. Just horrible shot selection there. Just zero reason to go down the line on a baseline, essentially a baseline half volley, when Halys just made a perfect deep cross-court return, and we're going hard down the line off of it. Just makes no sense. Just to kind of say one. Now, fourth set, Halys 46% first serves in. Still almost won the set because Rune was not in a great headspace throughout the fourth set, and I've seen a lot of that silly stuff. Fifth set, I thought Holger got better. Halys serves 55%. Rune serves 84% first serves, and he wins it 6-2. Halys is a server. Again, that's his big strength. He does hit the ball. He does hit the forehand massive, but primarily he's a big server. He obviously is not going to be able to upset Holger Rune on clay if he's not serving well, and he did not serve well in the fourth set or the fifth set. And one thing I noticed with Halys that I want to mention, I don't know how much people care about this, but the big difference between him and some of the other big servers like Opelka, Pechi Pericard, Hurkacz, and certainly I think the biggest example of this would be John Isner, is the guys I just named, they all have really great second serves. So they have the best first serves, but in a lot of cases, they also have the best second serves. Halys has a pretty big drop-off. His second serve is not great. He always throws his toss at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. He can't access the kick serve. His average second serve speed for this match was 99 miles per hour. He double faulted 10 times. And I think that was also part of what did him in here. But the fact that this was so difficult for Rune matters a lot, right? It's a long 2 weeks. He's got to play Lorenzo Musetti now. It's a night session. I think Holger will be thrilled about that. Based on the difference that we saw in his level between the night session and the day session, well, it was night and day. So that will certainly work in Holger's favor, but a match against Lorenzo Musetti, it doesn't matter how well Rune plays, it's going to be physical. Whereas this match, I think if Rune just played better, it would not have been physical. It would not have gone 5. And the reality is he's played 6 best-of-5 matches this year. 4 of them have gone the distance. I really don't think this one should have. So as complimentary as I was of Rune after his second-round performance, I'm going the other way on this one, even though he won. Let's go to another 5-setter. And then after that, we're going to go right back to talking about straight. No, that's not true. Okay, anyway. Let's talk about another 5-setter. This one, I almost wish I was able to watch more of this one. It was kind of during a chaotic time of the day. But Khachanov Paul, well, first off, talked about the amazing heart on display for Tommy after his win in the second round, when it seemed like he was not only down 2 sets to love, but also physically compromised. Well, he goes 5 again here, and he wins another one. So realistically, he's probably taken himself out of the tournament with how physical this has been. In other words, he is not likely to have much left moving forward. But still, major kudos to Tommy for the toughness. This was, at the end of the day, an exceptionally close match, even by the standards of a 5-setter. Khachanov won 4 more total points. The entire stat sheet was tight. These are 2 guys who have trouble attacking with their forehands. And in the important moments, the effectiveness mattered when it came to attacking with the forehands. You look at the third set tiebreak. 5-6 in the third set tiebreak. Paul down set point. It's 1 set apiece at this time. He goes kick serve out wide, gets it out of Khachanov's strike zone, +1 forehand down the line behind Karen to force the error. So Tommy's forehand comes through there. He does make an unforced error on the next point with the forehand, saves another set point. At 7-all, Khachanov makes a good first serve, gets a floating return from Tommy where he's got all day to set up, and hits a forehand inside out long for an unforced error, giving Tommy Paul his first opportunity to wrap up the set. At this point, Tommy misses his first serve, slow second serve into Khachanov's forehand. Karen doesn't do anything with the return, just starts the point. He could have done a lot more there. And eventually, Tommy came through with his own forehand. Hard cross-court trade, down the line, forces the error. Karen played this point really tight, didn't want to miss. Tommy's forehands were nothing exceptional, but he certainly liberated himself to attack the short balls that Khachanov was offering up. The other moment that stood out was Tommy serving for the match in the fifth. He was down love 30. It looked like the nagging injury flared up on Paul after he went up 4-love in the fifth. So it was going to be huge for him to hold here, serving for the match at 5-3. And from down love 30, 3 in a row, serve plus forehand approach. I forget how many he had to actually hit a volley on. I think maybe one of them, and then the other 2, he didn't need to even hit a volley. But the forward pressure, I think, also had a lot to do with why Khachanov was forced into error. And then a service winner up the tee to finish. So Tommy from down love 30, 4 first serves in a row, 3 really good +1 forehands, forward pressure behind it. That's when he's at his best. Bada bing, bada boom, Tommy Paul wins the match. We'll see what he has left in the tank physically. I want to hit on Popyrin Borges. I know this isn't the sexiest matchup, but quickly, Popyrin was pretty dominant serving. He was only broken twice across 3 sets. He made 76% of his first serves, which is really high for him. And I felt he was using the conditions well. This was when Rune and Halys were playing, hot conditions, a lot of jump off the court. Alexei was using that kick serve out wide on the ad. He was loving the heavy inside-out forehand, getting it up high on Borges' backhand. Nuno on the high backhand, it's fine, but he just can't really get all that much on the ball. And Popyrin was, once he put Borges in backhand jail on the inside-out forehand, Nuno just could never really find a way out. Now, I will say Popyrin's backhand was easily the worst ground stroke on the court. Wayne Ferreira is now working with Alexei. They've worked on the grip. They're trying to get him to be more aggressive on the backhand. I'm just not seeing it yet. It looks to me a little bit overspun, if anything. I'm seeing way more like left wrist elasticity. I'm seeing more racket drop on the backhand, almost exaggerating it. And right now it just looks kind of forced to me. So what was the key for Popyrin is he did such an incredible job of hiding his backhand, especially on his service points, mixing in the serve and volley, a lot of serve +1 forehand approach. And generally, again, once the points were on his forehand, it was really hard for Borges to kind of get it away from that deadly clay court weapon that Popyrin possesses on his forehand. It's been a slow 2025 for Alexei. He has been dealing with some injuries, so this is a really big result for him. 2 more. Tiafoe Korda. This was a straight set match, and this is one where I was really surprised to see just how uncompetitive this was. I was more surprised that this was straight sets than Draper Fonseca. In fact, a lot of the stuff on paper actually favored Korda. It had been 3 years and 32 days since Tiafoe's last top 30 win on clay. He had a losing record at RG coming into the event. Korda was 12-5 here. Seb's been good in Paris. Foe has not been. So all this stuff was favoring Korda, but once the match started, man, the first set was close, and I'll talk about why at the end here. But I think overall, when you look at the match, Tiafoe was playing more aggressively and missing less often. And when those two things are the case simultaneously, you know who's winning the match. I just felt like Foe was way more dynamic offensively, sharper angles on his forehand. He does a great job of cutting around the outside edge of the ball and, breaking that sideline short in the court. He's got great feel for that particular forehand. Korda plays flatter, doesn't really open up the court as much on the forehand. It's much more linear with the flatter strokes. Tiafoe does a better job than Korda of recognizing that moment to step in and take time away, especially on that backhand wing when he knows there's going to be open court down the line. How good is he at just getting inside that baseline and making that redirection so much more effective? Not to mention, He jumps on his chances to come forward more readily than Korda. Korda at his best is really good at just relentlessly dictating off both wings. He doesn't necessarily have big knockout power, but he just lands those combinations, and it's the precision and how often he's able to just kind of work the ball around the court. But nothing felt forceful enough. Like, there wasn't enough on his ball. He wasn't doing enough to break Tiafoe's contact points and to throw him off balance. Everything felt very neutral, which would be okay. Again, neutral is okay if you have some sort of consistency advantage, but that did not exist whatsoever for Korda. And I want to bring you to one possible inflection point in the match, which was 6-all in the first set tiebreak, where Korda, on a +1 backhand that he wasn't even trying to attack, it looked like he was just trying to start the point with a nice rally ball backhand cross court. Clips the tape for an unforced error. Tiafoe service winner on the next point, and that's the first set. So that was the difference in the tiebreak, but also for the set overall, backhand unforced errors were Korda 7, Tiafoe 2. Backhand unforced errors for the match, Korda 15, Tiafoe 4, which is a really impressive number by Francis. And I notice this at the U.S. Open every year. I've watched so much Francis at the U.S. Open the last 4 years, like in person. When Tiafoe locks it in, he's basically automatic on his backhand. He doesn't miss that shot. I actually thought coming into the match that Korda might have an advantage against Tiafoe backhand because he is better at creating and generating pace off of that wing more generally. But it just didn't materialize whatsoever. It was Tiafoe who had the decided edge in that pattern because he was so much more consistent. And honestly, he was just able to, it seemed like, eat up court position a lot better and use his backhand offensively more often. Start of the second set, Korda throws in a horrendous service game. Double fault, 2 forehand unforced errors to give away serve. And from there, I was a little bit bothered by a perceived lack of intensity from Korda. A lot of head-scratching errors, whether it be the decision or the margin of miss or the fact that on a big point, all right, time to lock it in. Here we go, put the clamps down, and he just wasn't doing it. There were a lot of errors here off of very simple shots where I had to call into question Korda's concentration. Like, were you valuing the point as much as maybe you need to if you were just kind of missing a rally ball here? It just felt like there was some focus aspect missing for Korda. And for Tiafoe, man, locked in every point. Great to see that kind of focus from Francis on European clay. The mentality is so important for Tiafoe. We talk about that all the time, and he had it. Korda did have a lower back medical timeout. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe he was distracted by a little bit of discomfort or pain. Maybe he wasn't taking those adjustment steps and moving with the sort of speed that he would want to because he was being careful with his movement. I don't know. The one thing that was keeping Korda in this match, and I think Tiafoe needs to consider it, I'm saying it because I think it might factor in later on in the tournament if Francis doesn't make an adjustment. The second serve return position. If somebody is hitting second serves 100 miles per hour at your body, you cannot take it 4 feet inside the baseline. Tiafoe was getting jammed over and over again and then having to retreat into position, usually couldn't recover in time. It's one thing when somebody's hitting a slow kick serve. Sure, foe, like go 4 feet inside the baseline and attack it. But if somebody's going to hit 100 into your body, respect it. Move back. Like, okay, it's not. I think the adjustment needs to be made there. You've got to have respect for your opponent's second serve if it's coming in that quickly. Korda, 9 straight slams without a second week. So that's, no fourth rounds, 9 straight slams. Not great. Alcaraz Dzumhur. This was Actually, a fun one. Dzumhur has elite speed. First thing I want to say, I did my movement tiers at the start of the tournament. He should have been in my movement tier. Either tier 1, tier 2. Yeah, he is rapid. He is lightning. He also has some incredible touch. So you're going to see great drop shots. You're going to see a lot of speed. And that's how he makes up for the fact that he does not hit a very big ball. Alcaraz was quite straightforward for 2 sets. And I did feel as if Dzumhur was just kind of getting hit off the court and probably wasn't maintaining enough quality in terms of depth and pace off the ground, even with the speed that he possesses. He ramped that up a little bit in the 3rd set. However, Alcaraz had some chances. Carlos made some mistakes. It looked to me like he got a little bored. And then it looked to me like he realized he got bored, lost his focus, made some mistakes. Then he got really negative. Like you almost saw an evolution here where it was like, okay, he just kind of, he lost focus. Then he got pissed at himself for losing focus. Now you have a whole other problem because he's negative. And it kind of let Dzumhur back into the match. Also, the conditions slowed down. Not only was Dzumhur, I think, getting a little bit more on his ground strokes, but his defense was even more effective because the cooler conditions did take a little bit of sting out of Alcaraz's game. Ultimately, though, this was similar to the Marozsan match where Alcaraz had an enormous advantage on the serve +1 firepower. And when I say serve +1 and I'm talking about Alcaraz, a lot of what I'm saying is actually the +1 versus the serve. But hey, 5+ rallies was actually advantage Dzumhur +1 shot. 1 through 4 rallies, advantage Alcaraz +22. Sorry, I didn't mean to say +1 shot. I meant to say +1 point. Dzumhur average first serve speed, 105 miles per hour. I was getting on Marozsan, and Marozsan was averaging 115. If that gives you an idea. Quote from Alcaraz post-match. Quote, "I did not enjoy the match." That just about sums it up. Got tough for him mentally. This is where the best of 5 gives him plenty of time to figure it out. He had plenty of cushion anyway. He did a good job of fighting through it, not letting it get completely off the rails. Did get broken serving for the match, but broke right back to win that 4th set 6-4. And that just about does it. I don't know if I'm going to do another full show for the 4th round. In fact, I don't think I am. I think I'm going to do post-matches, and then I'll have a quarterfinal preview for Monday match analysis. So that is the plan moving forward. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.